I mean, I think we're opening with how we always tend to open with a cut from a behind the scenes chat, into
Oh,
a cold open. I mean,
oh,
that's
I
how we
mean,
usually
sure,
open.
sure. I mean, oh no, we're live now. Do you think they heard? Do you think they've? Do you think they saw behind the curtain?
Uh, Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I forgot. I accidentally left my YouTube window open, so
Oh no.
yeah, there's a little background sound there. All right. So welcome to the Gospel of Comics, as has been a recent occurrence. It's just me and Joe at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll
Yeah.
get a random Ayrton. Maybe we won't. And
I mean, maybe we'll get a church. I was talking to church recently. I said we do want you to come back. I want you to finish your Tales of the Clone saga.
also he's teasing 2099.
Yeah. Well, we didn't. Here's the thing. We didn't even really get to finish talking about 2099 because there are a couple of interesting things about Ravage that I think got lost in the sauce, like the fact he is just straight up dead.
Hmm.
Right. I am always tickled when they kill a Marvel character and leave it dead. Not not because I necessarily don't think cool characters are cool, but just because death has become so rare in comics.
Yeah, something dying is interesting.
Right. But no, tonight we're talking about a bunch of different things.
Well, especially some movies,
Especially some movies. We're doing a lot of movies tonight.
because Hollywood's been having a bad time. October's one of the worst Octobers ever, and I don't think things are going to be getting better anytime soon. I think 2025 is going to end up clocking in as one of the worst movie years, definitely since the pandemic.
Well, tonight, as I double checked the title, we're really talking about two things overall. But I think it's worth mentioning. We actually have to include a range of other films to
Mhm.
really get to the center of a problem. So tonight for the people is Running Man and Deathstalker,
Yeah,
right?
that title works for
And
both those movies.
and since we don't have any flashy candy to show the people, Larry, I have a weird proposal. I propose we watch the trailers for both. I mean, we have watched the films, but let's show the people the trailers. Get
I
them
mean,
the
we
mind of the
showed
difference
we
between the
showed
two.
we showed them the trailers when they came out.
Okay, I mean, we could revisit, but whatever.
But I
Uh,
want to start a little bit with the
yeah,
Running Man,
yeah, you
because there's
start
there's
start
some
with
other
Running Man.
ancillary things connected to the Running Man, which will lead us into Deathstalker kind of naturally.
Yeah,
So Joe, we were talking before the show started about the Richard Bachman story,
yes,
which is very different than the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, which was basically a very paper thin simulacrum of the original story.
yeah. I mean, well, let's do this then, because maybe some of the people are babies and they don't know. Let's talk about how Stephen King is insane and possibly always has been. Um,
Look. You don't have to be insane. You have cocaine.
right, but it helps. So Stephen King was a younger author once upon a time. We were all younger once upon a time,
Hmm.
and he was very famous for his very early successes. I know a lot of people look at Stephen King now and like he just craps out a book and it doesn't mean shit. It's like, yeah, but you have to think about the landscape when he published first, right? His first big books, his first big successes, right? And how gravitationally changing they were for fiction at that time. Um, but having said that, he had this problem. He couldn't get published doing anything else. He went to his publishers, he went to his agents. He said, "I got a horror book." They throw money at his face, right? he went at them and said, "I got a science fiction." Like, no, you're Steven. You're the horror guy. We're not going to publish that. But I have this proof of all these other books I've done. Yeah, those are good investments because those are horror, and you're the horror guy. We're not going to take a risk on your shitty little science fiction story. Okay. So he, in secret, made a nom de plume, a pen name, Richard Bachman, right? And Richard Bachman was the name he used to publish multiple short stories, including the one Stephen King doesn't want you to read. Okay? If you can get a copy of a short story called Rage, get it before he disappears it like a George Lucas. Okay?
Mhm.
The thing is that this dichotomy, being Richard Bachman and not being Richard Bachman, actually became shaping on Stephen King's personality and led him to make two other pieces of fiction. What is it, Rear Window? The one that Johnny
Uh,
Depp did a terrible film of? And The Dark Half, right? Things about the author having two divergent personalities
mhm.
in fiction creation, right? Probably also influenced Raising Cain, which, while a horror film because it's a thriller, is probably more of a Bachman book because it's a science fiction about early cloning,
Mhm.
test tube babies. John Lithgow film, see it, it's great. Uh, the important part is that he was Richard Bachman for a while, and he published a lot of books under Bachman and was very successful. And some, like Good Morning America, somebody somewhere, some piece of shit TV show outed him, and it finally caught on. Stephen King was Richard Bachman, and this led to the death of Bachman as a concept because he couldn't put out Bachman books anymore, and people not know it was him. But at the same
Of
time,
the
it's like,
of the original four Bachman books, only two, and both of them this year, have been adapted into films.
right, and one of them's The Running Man.
There is one that came after he was revealed to be Bachman that has also been made into a film, Thinner.
See, I didn't know Thinner was a Bachman. I thought Thinner would have been a King because Thinner is a supernatural.
I think that was more to do with how he treated the obese and the
Mm,
gypsies.
yeah. The important differential people need to keep in mind, as we talk about this, is that the Bachman books, by and large, were intended to publish non-horror works or works that Stephen King thought he couldn't get published somewhere else, right?
Mhm.
And as Larry has pointed out, it's like, yeah, Thinner has some very unpleasant things to say about a certain subgroup of society,
Well, two of them.
right? But if you've never seen the film, it's a good movie and it's probably a great read, right? So, your mileage may vary. Um, but I'm gonna turn it over to Larry. I'm gonna shut up for a minute and let Larry describe the new Running Man, because if anybody
Well,
has not seen the original Running Man,
well,
go see that movie. That's delicious cheese.
let's first of all, Joe, what do you recall of the basics of the plot of the novel?
All right, you want the most basic plot with none of the particulars of the plot.
Yeah, none of the particulars, because
Okay.
particulars aren't that crucial.
Well, because I actually know the particulars. I haven't even reread it recently, but I remember these things. So the basics of the Running Man is that in a near future that is at best economically depressed and at worst just very stark in the haves and the have-nots, mass marketed television has become postmodern gladiatorial games where people will give up their lives for the potential of winning big cash payouts for demeaning and dangerous entertainment. An example from the book that is pretty good, and they even reference in probably in both films, is guy running on a treadmill having to answer increasingly difficult Jeopardy-like questions who has a heart condition.
Hmm.
The more miles he runs, the more money he makes, but he has to answer every question. Every time he gets a question wrong, the treadmill speeds up
Yep.
because he will eventually die on that fucking treadmill, and everybody is desperate to see. This is also pretty close to that influencer-inspired episode of Black Mirror with the one black actor from Get Out, who's the main character,
Hmm.
right? It's same deal. The idea of self-destruction for fame, right? Except in this case, it's literal money, and the people being targeted are the lowest base of society. It's all blue collar working class people,
Hmm.
people who lost out on the American dream because the American dream was a planned rat race, so to speak. That's what the Running Man's about. And the main character is one of those people who's losing out that signs up for the biggest, most watched show on Earth at the time, The Running Man, in which a person basically offers themselves up to be hunted down for sport for money, right? Um, and I'm gonna again turn it back over to you, Larry. Let you take over at this point because I don't want to get into the
Hmm. Now,
shocking reveals of how that works.
now, did our protagonist in the novel, was his reason because his kid was sick, or did he have just like, yeah, I'm just a broke motherfucker?
Both. It's I'm a broke motherfucker and my kid is sick.
So this movie, and I want to say about the current movie,
Yeah.
it is very well shot. Uh, the dialogue is weak, but also it, it's very much, I think, this was like what Stephen King was writing, if I remember correctly. Things so it's kind of weak. The pacing's kind of weak. Glenn Powell holds the movie together on the strength of his abilities as an actor, including an action sequence where he's in a towel because
Right.
they attacked him when he was going to the bathroom.
Right.
The problem with the movie is the book. Spoiler from a book from like 40 odd years ago. Um, the book ends on a downer where our main character plows a plane into the network building.
That is
So
not
it,
a downer. That is glorious, but continue.
well, I mean, doing a 9/11 in a movie with your protagonist, that would be considered
No.
a downer.
No. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Because again, time period. It's not just that he does a 9/11, which is pretty awful
And
contextually.
and the
Okay.
buildings for the network are alluded to be the World Trade Center, the
Right.
way they're described.
No. What? No. What's actually going on is there's the bad guy, Damon Killian, in his office. Okay. And this is a big reveal. I think this is actually pertinent to our broader conversation. So Damon Killian's a white guy. I think he's played by Josh Brolin in
Mm,
the movie
yes.
this time. Yeah, last time he was played by the guy from
Richard
The Price is
Dawkins.
Right. Yeah,
And not
uh,
the Price Right, Family Feud.
Family Feud. Right. Uh, so early in the film, early in the book, Damon Killian has a conversation with our hero, and says, you know, he basically gives him the cheat code to survive and make a good show, because a lot of people, when they get the starting cash and they understand the rules, they try to go live bombastic short lives, and so they get caught real fast and die. Right? Damon Killian tells him, live close to the ground, to your people. Basically, your scum, go live among the scum, die among the scum. Right? And our hero refuses to die. He's a hero. He's a movie hero. He'd been a movie. So when he hops a plane, wounded because he's been shot, okay, and flies it into Damon Killian's building, he doesn't just hit the building. he hits Damon Killian's office. The last scene is Damon Killian turning, looking out the window, seeing the plane, seeing the hero flipping him the bird before the plane collides with the building. It is amazing. It is a literal giant middle finger
Yes,
to the system.
yes, and
Um,
we're
and the reason I
and
mentioned that this is very telling on the book, in the book, the main character is black,
yes,
not in
and
either of the movies.
although in this movie his wife is black
in
and his
that
child's
movie, in the book, I believe that the wife was Southeast Asian or mixed, but
Mhm.
still, like, you know, ethnic is the important point. Ethnic underclasses being exploited by white upper classes is a theme in the book.
Yes. So this movie is, I would say, a very good adaptation of the book, except for the ending, because they couldn't have a movie ending the way the book ended,
Right.
and I knew that walking in. And the DNA of how they set up the ending ties into all the parts of the movie that don't really work. So, Ben Richards has a kid. Kid's
That was
sick.
it. I kept trying to say Richard Kimball, and I was like, no, that's the wrong Richard. That's the wrong Richard. Who the fuck is it?
That's the fugitive, is Richard
Yeah,
Kimball.
but well, because
So,
the fugitive shares DNA. You know.
Ben Richards has lost every job because he's sticking up for the little guy, fighting the man. He's gotten screwed
Right.
over by his own union. You know,
Well,
he's trying to
here's a
stand up to the system.
here's a question because it's actually pertinent. In the film, because you watched it, do they actually discuss why he can't get the good job that's readily available?
Because, well, he's blacklisted by the network, and the network controls all the companies,
Yeah, no,
is what they
they
say in the
added that.
movie.
That's not why. In the book, there is ready labor for everyone. Okay, because in this future, nuclear power has become commercially viable. Right,
Hmm.
everybody can work at the plant making power. Right, but due to deregulation and a lack of governmental control, the implication of the government's control on power is very thin.
Hmm.
Increasingly, safety protocols are reduced. So the problem is you can go work at the power plant. You can make good money if you don't want to have children
Hmm.
because
That's
the
actually
radiation will make you sterile.
that's actually a plot beat in the beginning of the movie. When he's trying to get
Right.
his job back at the plant, he's like complaining, and the supervisor foreman says, "Hey, you complained about a radiation leak, you got fired, and also, hey,
Right.
you ended up not being sterile. What are you bitching about?"
Yeah, and that's literally why I bring it up is like he could always have taken the labor that would have literally destroyed his capacity to be respected as a person,
He
right?
also, in the process of his run, we learned he had the opportunity to work on the black market, but the guy at the black market was waiting for the right time to let him know, which
Yeah,
unfortunately never came because he couldn't run it.
right.
So Ben has got a sick kid, can't get a job. He's been watching these game shows, and he figured out, hey, I could beat almost all these game shows. I don't have to go on the running. I mean, you're crazy to go on the running, right? You're crazy.
Yeah,
So his wife, who works at a skeezy nightclub, let's put it that way, implies that she's going to strongly hint that she might sell herself to make money to take care of their child. And this is, what sets up the stakes for Ben Richards.
right.
He gets in line. Some guys has a problem, needs a doctor. He tries to help him. The guards try to beat him. He fights the guards off. Uh,
Right.
the guards try to beat somebody during one of the other testing trials. He's just has a bad attitude. anti-establishmentarian, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
He's getting his final questions asked by one of the bureaucrats. And he starts to imply negative things about his wife and family, and he tries to break through you know, the intelligent glass.
Right.
And this gets him passed through, and then he and two others are picked to be the Running Man. And this is interesting. Somewhat, we'll get to that later. Um, one guy, he's let out first, then the chick's let out, and then Damon Killian looks at him and says, "Boy, son, you have star potential all on you. We've done this show for a long time. There's never been anybody as angry, pissed off, stubborn as you. You've got potential to make it all 30 days and
Yeah.
get the money."
Well, this is
And it,
where I think we need to bring in for the people the difference between the film and the two films and the book,
well,
and
no,
the thing that I
no,
hinted at but I didn't mention earlier. Okay.
well, no,
In
no.
the
Before
Okay.
we
Right.
segue into anything about the Arnold book, I want to finish
Right.
this scene because this scene is crucial. And he
Okay.
says, "Look, normally I don't do this, but I'm going to give you a signing bonus of $500 new. That's enough for you to actually get your child into a for real doctor to get her looked at. Because all his child has is the flu, and she's struggling to live through the flu. And with that, his fate is sealed. He signs on the dotted line. He goes to be in the running. Now, in the
God, I
opening
wish I
from
could remember if that's in the book or not.
now in the opening for the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, his Ben Richards was military pilot, and there was a food
Right.
riot,
Right.
and he's ordered to fucking murder people,
Right.
and he's like, "Bro, there's no weapons, there's no violent insurgents, just hungry people,"
Right.
and he gets arrested, he goes to jail.
Yeah.
Um, he breaks out of jail. The people who break him out think he's a fucking war criminal who murdered a bunch of people, but because they weren't going to get out without him, they let him do that. He breaks into a lady's house. We're going to get into more about that later when we're comparing the new film.
Yeah.
He gets some fake credentials. He just wants to fucking leave. He wants to get to some place towards the edge of this place where the syndicate works. He gets rearrested, but Mr. Killian is powerful enough that he can call the Department of Justice and say, "Listen, I want Ben Richards. He's going to be the biggest ratings draw ever." And now we compare these two. Let's contrast these two with the opening for the book. The opening for the book is probably a lot like the new movie, right?
Yeah. There's a superficial similarity. Um, what I was gonna bring up is in the Arnold film, when they finally get onto the Running Man, it is placed in sort of like some post-apocalyptic like ruins in the derelict center of
Yeah,
town and televised.
yeah.
In
We're
the
going to get
book,
to that.
and in the new book, it is not like that. You are set
No.
out, you get a little starting cash, right? But
Mm,
you are in and among the people. The hunt is live. It is
yes.
everywhere. So it is
Yes.
actually more akin to, you mentioned it a couple minutes ago, The Fugitive,
Mhm.
right? It's what if the US Marshals and Tommy Lee Jones were hunting you for money, not hunting you for the government.
Well, I mean, they're also hunting you for the government. There's money, but
Right.
we're
But
we're
then
gonna get a
the
little.
the
We're gonna,
next key thing, and this is a major plot point for later, is you aren't just free to run and you can disappear. You are required to give
yeah,
video testimonial, very much
yes.
like in reality TV today, of your doings and goings on. They're using those tapes to track you,
And
obviously.
in this movie, they use those tapes to create deep fakes to alter the
Yeah,
narrative.
right.
But let's since you kind of opened this up and it feels kind of appropriate to talk about it. There's a lot of convoluted rules in the Running Man in the novel and the Running Man in this most recent movie.
Yeah,
The rules really don't matter. The rules don't really build narrative tension. They don't really say, "Aha, well, this is how they figure out where you are." As you mentioned with the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, you were put in a limited space,
Yeah.
and the hunters who were coming after you, they weren't really like government agents. They were professional wrestlers. They were hyper
Yeah.
violent professional wrestlers.
Right.
So that helped to make the stakes of the hunt more significant. One moment. I have a small for a creature mewing. I have to
Oh no.
ascertain what the small creature wants.
Yes, Larry is now possessed and controlled by a small animal. Um, I don't want to dig too deeply while he's doing with that because I don't want to get too far ahead. But uh, let's be clear. We are huge fans around here at the Gospel of uh the Running Man. We are huge
Mhm.
fans of the old school. We
Right,
enjoyed it
and
deeply.
but here's the important takeaway here is in a novel,
Yeah,
a bunch of convoluted rules that don't really impact the story, that's fine. You can get away with that.
yeah.
In the new movie, it doesn't work. But in the Arnold movie, what works as an adaptation is limited space. It's like pro wrestling. It's simple, it's easier to digest, it's easier to manage stakes and manage pacing.
So here's another thing. If we're gonna compare the two films, very early in the film, uh, the original Arnold film also knew how to infer a world without describing it.
Because of the
Okay.
gambling mechanic.
Well, not just the gambling mechanic, but if you recall, as he is being walked by security to the stage, right?
Mhm,
He is assigned an agent in the same way that you're assigned a lawyer if you can't afford one,
mhm.
right? And his lawyer is reading him off a bunch of bullshit that is nothing. It's just legal speak. It means nothing to him. He has no choice, right? And at the end, he has to sign it, right? And we get a bit of a audience, yeah, when he stabs the lawyer with the pen through the
Mhm,
back, right?
mhm,
But the key point is that that contract has all of the 56 billion rules that you're not going to know, right?
mhm.
It's literal visual storytelling saying there are a bunch of rules. There is a bunch of context, but we don't need that context because the Running Man in the Arnold setting is a fairy tale. The fairy tale
Right.
doesn't need you to have more than good guy gonna run from bad guy, gonna fight bad guy and win.
Yep, yep. So, in this movie, and closer to the Bachman book, he goes to meet his uncle, mentor, father figure in the black market, who takes pity on him, gives him his initial starting kit of stuff to sneak away, and he later gets tortured and snitches on him. But he tells him, "Don't stay with your people. Your people will be the first ones to betray you."
It's an interesting inversion.
Mhm,
Because as
mhm.
if you recall, because I just mentioned that he was advised by Killian, "Stay with your kind," which when
Well,
we
no,
talk
no.
about the fact that
Well,
he's
no, no.
a
Killian had mentioned to him that same thing in the opening, and
mm,
his uncle tells him, "Don't do that. Your
yeah.
own kind will fuck with you."
Well, I mentioned it because again, this is when you think about the book in the context of this is a white man telling a black man, stick to your own kind where you belong.
Mhm.
It has a lot of layers.
It does. In the implied blackness, we're going to get into with the movie here in a little bit, but
Yeah.
so he runs. He goes first to a luxury hotel. He gets set up at the luxury hotel, and he watches the first guy get killed. Why'd the first guy get killed? Because he was dumb. He went out to get food, and he tried to hit on the clerk, and the clerk got 10 grand, I think it was, or $1,000 for snitching on him to the
Yeah.
hunters.
Which
Which,
I want to be clear, by the way, because we need to talk about some other people tonight. Tonight on the Gospel of Comics, some of our viewers may be familiar with a guy we've talked about before, name of the Critical Drinker, and
mhm,
his friends and his peers who make their living shit talking movies, and often they're right. They deserve
mhm,
credit for being right. The movies they're talking about are shit. Hollywood has
mhm,
screwed the pooch so many times you can't fault the logic, right? But no matter how right they might be in average, they're not always right. Okay? And this is extremely important
Hmm.
because they criticize a number of things, including the idea that the Running Man now happens in the city, among the people, and that people are incentivized to turn dime on the Running Man,
Hmm.
right? That's from the book.
That's from
That
the
has
book,
always been the case, right? And frankly
and
is pretty fucking realistic. If all I had to
it's
do was call up the studio and say I saw a guy and I might get money, people would do it.
mhm,
Crime Stoppers exists, for fuck's sake.
mhm, mhm. Um,
Saying, well, they didn't do that in the old movie and the old movie was better is kind of a disingenuous argument when it's following the book's structure somewhat.
and
Yeah,
the old movie did it in a less overt way
which
because
is which is better. Like I'll grant, less overt, good, but that doesn't mean other bad. You know.
Richards realizes after he sees the first of the other people who are in the game with him get
Yeah,
ganked, he realizes I can't stay in a luxury hotel. He sneaks out.
right.
He gets a homeless person to give him his clothes, and the homeless person made a comment about stolen valor, but he's like, you look like you need it more than I do.
Yeah,
And then he goes into a YMCA, hides out there for a while. There's some filler for the show, which is part of the problem I have with how the book structured it from an adaptation standpoint, because there's long periods of nothing before the hunter finds you,
right.
and that doesn't create a lot of good action movie content because
Well,
the Running
it's.
Man's not really an action movie story.
I mean, it's the usual problem, right? Is your brain says, okay, what what kind of story is this? And the answer is probably actually shouldn't be a movie. I think the Running Man might actually work better as a mini series,
Yeah.
right? Because it's supposed to encapsulate a great deal of time.
Hmm. So Ben Richards like watches the shitty television that they have. They attack him. He kills a bunch of the goons because they turn on the gas, and he tosses a grenade at them, blows up a building. Various poor and disenfranchised people want to murder him, and another one nabs him, takes him back to his house, and smartens him up on the
Right.
show, how the show works, and also on the corrupt things that the government's doing. In the show, there are three archetypes he describes. There's the guy who's just in it to get hungry. He's hungry, going to get his food. He's going to get poached first. Then there's one who's out to have a good time. They get poached in the middle, and last but not least is the final guy, the survivalist, the angry one, the cunning one. He survives as long as the ratings go up. And that's who Ben Richards is. He's recruited to be that archetype. Now, I don't recall if this was in the books. I don't think it was. But this idea was half baked in the movie. And again, if you're living in this world where there's a corrupt economic system and he, by implication, knows that, why is this black guy with a kid who's dying of lung cancer because the atomic factory vomited some radon or something? Why is this guy having to tell him the
So
things?
so here's this about that. What we are coming up against, what we have finally touched on, because this is not book supported, is a Hollywood problem.
Hmm.
Okay, we've all heard the phrase "the personal is the political." We all know that one, but I'm gonna posit a slightly different one. To Hollywood, everything is personal.
Hmm.
Okay, it's a trope that you can find on TV tropes. Everything happens to a very small number of people. Everything in a Hollywood picture has to be personally motivated. And this plot beat actually comes from the Hunger Games, which,
Hmm.
despite its derivation from
Battle
uh,
Royale.
Battle Royale, is also derived from the Running Man,
Hmm.
right? Because the Running Man's that old. I think people don't realize that it's a
Early
pretty
80s.
old story. Yeah. Um, and it's like, okay, so this is gladiatorial. It's got to be controlled. It's all regulated. You weren't just some rando dude. You were hand chosen because you fit the theme. Because the people need a narrative. We have to do the story. Because that's why Katniss gets to do all of her stupid shit, right? Is because it's a story for controlling the people, and it's fucking retarded because it always was. When you
Hmm.
read The Running Man, the actual enemy, the actual evil of the setting isn't Damon Killian. Damon Killian's just the avatar, right? It's the impersonality of the machines of civilization,
And how
right?
that personality forces you to, accept violence as a tool of
Right,
depersonalization.
right. Everybody that betrays Richards for the payday doesn't know who he is, doesn't care,
Mhm.
right? Richards and everything he does to survive, well, for his family, is ultimately self-serving, and frankly, he doesn't think about the greater context of what's going on. Not until the end, which we're about to get to. But I must now reveal the spoiler for the book, the big one, which I don't know if they did in the film. The
Okay.
reason that Ben Richards goes on the offensive to attack the studio, to attack Killian, to attack the company, is because he finds out just about this point in the film, which would have been just about the same point in the book, that his family is dead.
Oh, we
His,
haven't gotten to where that's touched on in the movie yet.
okay, they do it a little bit later, but in the book, it is revealed that not just is the game rigged, the game is a lie. It is a population reduction mechanism. They
Which
tell you
is
to sign up
something that,
for
which,
everything. Just
yeah,
go ahead.
which is something they allude to in the Schwarzenegger movie as well, that the whole thing's a lie.
Right. They sell you this dream. They say, come play the game and make all the money. But the fact of the matter is that they're not giving you any money. They're not giving you any money. They're not giving your family any of the money. You get nothing out of this. You are product fit to be ground in the machine for other people to profit off of.
Hmm.
Right?
So, after he blows everybody up in the place, he tries to tell people the truth. They do an
Right.
AI video edit, but
Right.
they also
That,
reveal all the
here's the thing.
children of the people, the hunters that he killed.
That is actually in the movie,
Hmm.
or in the book rather. Once he is awakened to the bullshit going on, he does try to use the videos to um tell people the truth, only to discover that they're being curated, right? Because
But
they because
here's
they're
the thing.
using because they're using video editing software from the
Yeah.
80s to edit his stuff. They outright say in the book that the tapes are a joke, right? Because he
It,
does a bunch of funny voices. He tries doing them in a balaclava. He tries telling people what's really going on. He tries to be sneaky. It never matters. That's
mm,
when they figure out that it's tracking devices, right? Because none of
mm,
the information you ever put out is ever going to get there. Nobody wants to hear the real story. People want the entertainment. They want the television.
mm. Now, then he sneaks out. He hides. He sneaks around.
Yeah,
That then the person who is the next person up, who's a lesbian, who's having a grand old time at the casino. She escapes getting caught by the hunters at the casino, and then two small children murder her with flamethrowers. Which I like that
that's
part.
the okay. So very 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 specifically, the context is the same. I do seem to recall
Hmm.
not a lesbian, but there was another runner who was one of the he became one of the prison escapees with
In
Richards
Arnold,
in the original. Yeah. Um he does get caught in a casino and they do kill him in the street, but it wasn't kids with a flamethrower. That's Hollywood.
but I mean that's fun, and the kids get a lifetime supply of the sugary cereal for murdering somebody.
Sure.
I mean, I would have said, you also get money. That would be
Right.
me. But and Richards like goes really deep underground, and then he finds another person who gives him even more deep lore of the systems of power and hierarchy and the revolution.
Y-
And he,
It's funny. We were talking about They Live just before the show,
Mhm.
and They Live is also very informative on all this because it's just the idea of a honeycomb of substratas of power you never saw, and like how the life we live is just the uppermost layer of a dream of a good thing we've got that we don't.
but so he's about to make his way out, but this guy warns him of the real way they're getting you is they have things that track your DNA built into every street lamp.
Ugh.
So that's something that's kind of interesting. I would have went with something like RFID or something, or like chips in your phones, but whatever.
It's really newfangled. It's like we got to make the cyberpunk more cyberpunk, guys. It I don't think it needed it, but I accede it's gonna happen.
But by this point in the movie, all of a sudden there's this big movement that's going like Richard lives, and unlike the Arnold movie, we don't get anything where we see the audience shifting to support Richards.
That's also not in the book.
Right. Then he kidnaps some lady on the road,
Yep.
uh, and she helps him drive to Canada. It's very similar to the role that the one lady in the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie played.
Well, except for
Whereas,
one difference. So this is why I said we have to talk about the drinker.
mhm,
The drinker lays into that pretty hard. He's coming at it from the perspective of the Arnold film, where that character is a fully realized person who joins the good fight. And in this story, she's just a hostage that serves no narrative purpose as he sees it within that film. But if you read the book, you know that that's not true.
well,
Okay?
in the movie, she does have a narrative purpose because she helps him sell a con job that he has a bomb, a really
Right,
big bomb.
right. But there's a more important thing relative to this bit. So he gets shot, okay? Because he's being chased by the hunters who actually has a conversation with at one point. Because they basically are like, "Look, boy, you can surrender. We'll kill you now, and we'll make it clean. You did better than most, right?" Because one of the secrets of the Running Man is it never ends. The month long duration is a lie.
Hmm.
They will hunt you until you are dead. No one escapes.
Well, we're
Right?
about to get to
Uh,
the hot part of this movie where it's
yeah,
patching together a good ending.
but
So,
but as he is having her drive him, and he is making this plan to sell that he's got a bomb, so that he can get a plane, right? Because they think he's going to try and escape. Uh, he has a horrifying realization that this woman is just a good person. They happen.
mhm.
Good people exist everywhere and happen every day. She doesn't watch the show because she's not into stage violence, right? She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just living her life, driving her car, right?
Now here's the thing: in the movie, she does it because he made her feel like a bad person.
Well, in the book, that is also true. He makes her feel bad for her lack of awareness, but
Oh
it's
no,
a
he
mutual level of disgust. He's
no
disgusted at what he's become. She's disgusted at what she has permitted to happen because good people didn't do
oh no
anything
no.
about
In
this.
this thing is he makes her feel bad because she spent more money on clothes and nonsense that could have just taken care of his child.
I'm saying in the book that's a note, but it's just one note among a lot of
Yeah,
notes. There's a lot
but
of things going on at that portion of the book. But if you haven't read the book, you would never know that that's going
no,
on.
no. But he tricks his way onto the plane, and he talks to Killian, and Killian's like says, "Bro, we got bomb sensors on this thing. We know you didn't actually have explosives. We were wanting to see how long you were going to keep up the act."
Right.
And he says, "Listen, I got to tell you something. Like, look, I got an offer for you. We're gonna make you the new lead hunter, but you got to kill all these hunters here." And he's like, "Going, fuck you, Killian." It's like, well, what if you're doing it for revenge? Revenge for what? Oh, they murdered your wife and kid. And Killian shows him some made up tapes, and he, in that moment, decides, no, I'm fucking murking all these guys.
Yeah.
And then Killian's like, he asks him, did they kill my wife and kids? Says like, look, if I told you they didn't, or they did, would you really believe me? And he tells Killian to go fuck himself.
Yeah,
And
that's
Killian,
Hollywood. That's Hollywood being unwilling to commit because it's
well, hold up,
actually absolutely they did.
well, hold up, and hold up, because we haven't got to the end of the movie yet.
Yeah.
Killian pilots the plane into the building, but it's killed by building security. But then there's a guy in the balaclava with a weird accent who's talking about all the conspiracy theories that emerged after the incident with the plane, how the real information got out, all the real tapes got out, and we got to hear the truth from Ben Richards. And then there's this almost riotous thing
So
at the.
so let me get this straight. They took a they took a event that was sad but was exactly what it needed to be, and they turned it into a happy feel good super ending.
Oh no
Like,
no no! We haven't even got to the ending yet. We're almost to the cherry on top of the ending. So it's the new season. The crowd absolutely hates the Running Man, hates the network. The guy who's the host, who's a great actor, does a great job of the show, tells Killian to go fuck himself and says, "I actually have a clause in my contract that allows me to just fucking walk. So have a good time." Killian goes out, tries to host the show. Molotov cocktails, people going over the barricades, fighting the guards. And the last person to come over is Ben Richards, who shoots him in the fucking head.
fuck you, Hollywood.
hmm hmm Uh, so that's the thing. They tried to give us the ending of the original movie with the story from the Stephen King book, and it ruins what the Stephen King book is all about.
Here's the thing. The reason that I'm like, oh, the actual ending of the Running Man is so great and glorious, okay, is not because a guy dies. I'm not like a sadist that wants sad stories, right? It's because it was really the only way it could end, but he went out on his own terms in a heroic fashion,
hmm
right? Turning it into the popular revolt and then having Ben Richards become the archetypical hero to lead them in the revolution and kill Killian is garish and invalidates the sacrifice,
hmm
right? It makes the world a cartoon,
It
right?
does,
Now you say, well, but the Arnold film was a cartoon. Yeah, but it never claimed to be anything other than a cartoon.
but the Arnold film was also way smarter in how it talked about the politics of manipulation, bread and circuses,
Right.
how a cartel forms out of all the corporations to back the imperialistic fascist regime.
Right.
How the people were controlled and regulated. The Arnold film expresses its world in a more believable and intelligent way. And at the end of the Arnold movie, the bad guys are killed, but you notice the world doesn't really change.
Yeah.
So again, the Arnold movie is written and structured in a way that is a lot more intelligent. The pacing is better because the pacing needs to be better. But you know what this movie really reminds me of? You
Mm,
remember that RoboCop remake?
I do.
You remember that Total Recall remake?
I do. And that is a comparison other people, including the drinker, have made.
And the thing is, the Total Recall remake was closer to the original story
Yep.
than the Arnold movie. But once again, the Arnold movie took the basics of the original story and made it into something a lot more intelligent.
Right. And that brings us, oddly enough, to the other major comparisons for the next hour of show.
Because we're going to talk
Right.
about Deathstalker.
We're gonna talk about Deathstalker, but before we get into Deathstalker, I want to comment on a couple of other films we've watched this year. because some people are saying some interesting things. So there's a conversation about whether or not Deathstalker is the best D&D movie ever made,
Mhm.
right? A crown that for a very long time was held by Conan the Destroyer, right? Now, for people who aren't familiar, Conan the Barbarian, of course, is the seminal epic. It's amazing, but was written by L. Sprague de Camp, who did the script work, and is not very Robert E. Howard, right?
And it's
Uh,
also L. Sprague de Camp taking the Roy Thomas Marvel comic
right,
run.
right. Uh, Conan the Destroyer was written by Roy Thomas and is very Marvel at that time. Okay, it's glitchy, it's funny, it's full of cheap laughs, but it's also violent, and it's Arnold at his early best because he's not quite the Terminator yet. He's not super refined as an actor yet, but it's okay because we don't care because we're having fun. There was
And
oh, go ahead.
and this movie is also where Dolph Lundgren meets Arnold and starts to get himself connected into Hollywood because he was Grace Jones's bodyguard.
Right. So there was an early 2000s attempt at a Conan remake. It failed. Jason Momoa was great. The plot was terrible. It had the bad guy from the Avatar film. It was just badly done across the board. Good actors could not save it. Okay, so it did not supplant Destroyer as best D&D movie it at all. It was another really bad uh uh fiction attempt or fantasy attempt. Then we had the D&D. We not just the D&D movie that everyone remembers, but we had the more recent D&D movie, Honor Among Thieves, which
Ugh.
was which was a disgusting, marvelized attempt at doing what would a movie look like in the Forgotten Realms if the actors were players at the table, and it was bad. It was just bad. It was just awful. It was not a good representation of D&D. It was not a good representation of fantasy. There was nothing good there at any stage. Okay? And then very recently, we watched Red Sonja, another attempt to do Howard, albeit by proxy of Marvel. And it was really mid. It wasn't good fantasy. It wasn't good Sonja. It wasn't good action. It was full of bland badness. Right? So, what is a Deathstalker? Why does Deathstalker matter? Deathstalker is a Conan cash-in movie. The original Deathstalker was made in the 80s, I want to say 85, after Conan the Barbarian, but before Conan the Destroyer, and it was rancid trash.
And
But in
before
the
the
way of
2000s, there was a whole genre of movies where they said, "Hey, we need to rip off Star Wars. Give me
yeah,
something cheap that is Star Wars like." And
right,
9/10 of them are horrible. There are a
right,
couple that are decent.
right. In the 80s there was a similar thing. Let's rip off Conan. The best of those knockoff films, a little movie you may have heard of called Beastmaster. Beastmaster's great. Beastmaster is not good. Beastmaster wants to be Conan the Barbarian. Deathstalker isn't even Beastmaster level. It is solid trash.
It is
Okay.
schlock of the first
It
order.
is yeah, it is titties and violence and ridiculous. The plot is a contrivance. Um but it got two follow-up films. It got Deathstalker 2, which changed actors and has some famous 80s character actors in bad movies, and it's still titties, but it airs more on the side of comedy and is not very good. And then it had Deathstalker and the Warriors of Hell, Deathstalker 3, which, as I understand it by the guidelines described by Red Letter Media, is not probably actually a Deathstalker movie so much as it is a Deathstalker movie compiled by clips from several other films by the same production company trying to turn a quick buck.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So Deathstalker as a property is trash from Trashville that has never claimed not to be trash.
The
And
only
as
thing
we
is, at least it's not a trauma movie.
right. And as we move into modernity, we have this filmic movement for retro 80s. People want to go back to the halcyon days when trash was trash and trash was fun, right? As evidenced, because you mentioned Trauma, the recent Toxic Avenger film is an
which
80s
was
cash in movie, but it was awful.
mhm.
It was so awful we didn't talk about it on this show very
No,
much.
we
We may
did.
have had, we
I
did,
mean,
but like I
there
have not
wasn't
gone out of
much.
my way. Yeah, I haven't
There
gone out of my way
wasn't
to
much
watch
to
it.
talk about.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's
you
not a
shouldn't.
lot.
You shouldn't
Okay,
watch it.
so out of nowhere in the 11th hour in the last couple of weeks was the announcement Deathstalker, and it's like, oh, that's gotta be shit. Okay, there was a lot of hemming and hawing on my end about whether or not am I going to watch it because I what I expected was a film trying to evoke 80s schlock while being modern schlock, right? Where it's going to make jokes and try to be funny, but it's not funny. It's just bad. It's going to try to be cool in 80s, like Far Cry Blood Dragon, but it's not actually going to be cool, right?
Hmm.
So today for show, I had a choice. I could either watch The Running Man or I could watch Deathstalker, and I literally decided by time because Running Man was an hour 115 minutes, right? And Deathstalker was 102. So I went and watched Deathstalker. And you know what? I'm not going to say it's better than Conan the Destroyer, but it is a damn sight better than any of the other fantasies we've had this year. It is a damn good fantasy movie because they understand exactly what they're supposed to do and they're having fun doing it, and they are not trying to preach at me, they are not trying to recontextualize, they're not trying to improve the story, but they're also not leaning into it comedically. All right, one of the funniest fucking things at the start of that movie is on some unknown battlefield an army is defeated by the Dreadites, which are clearly distinct from the Deadites. Honest, I mean they look like red putties from Power Rangers, but who cares?
Hmm.
They defeat this army, and a prince on the field of battle is dying, right? And Deathstalker emerges from the mist and kneels down and takes his hand so that he can hold his hand as he's dying, and the prince is sitting there dying, and Deathstalker begins to take the rings off of his fucking fingers because
Because
Deathstalker is a thief and a piece of shit, and always has been.
I mean, that is your standard D&D character thing.
Right, and that's just it. Is that the plot is very D&D, the characterizations are very D&D. It is just the right level of tongue in cheek. It is not a good movie.
No.
Okay, it's not trying to be a good movie. I appreciate they use a lot of practical FX because they went very minimal on any CGI budget. But having said that, it is a gloriously fun movie.
So here's one of my first questions is,
Yeah.
with Flash as the executive producer, how did the music side of the movie go?
I mean, mid-range metal. They use a lot of like house heavy. It's not bad.
But not a lot of stuff that was been done by Slash, probably, right?
I mean, maybe for the penultimate climax when they really throw out all the stops, but no, most of it's just kind of eh. Uh, Something noteworthy for those of us keeping track: Patton Oswalt's in it, but he's somehow not annoying enough to be a problem. And he also played. I'm gonna pause it. He played the movie out of makeup because he's a repulsive little troll.
Mm, mm, mm.
Instead of his human suit, he took it off for the day and is instead a like foot high Muppet in the way of Yoda.
So, what's the gist of the plot of this movie?
Okay, so the gist of the plot of Deathstalker is a malevolent threat called the Dreadites is roaming the land, destroying everything, and the empire of Abraxian is beset by darkness, and out of the mists of battle comes Deathstalker, a fallen hero and potentially former Kingsguard of the Queen in the Old Kingdom before the Empire, who has no friends, no loyalty, no connections to anything, right? And because he robbed this prince dying on this far-flung battlefield, he has come to possess a cursed object, which just might be the key to saving the world. And the only way that he can get rid of the curse is to follow its progressions. So he has to find someone that can read it, and this leads them to discover that the Dreadites may in fact be the vanguard of a returned necromancer named Necromemon. And basically all he wants to do is get the fuck out of this, and he keeps getting pulled back in deeper because the adventure will not let him go. Right? And it is literally all of the tropes. All of the tropes. Every assassin in the kingdom is after him because they want the amulet. There's a huge price for it, right? He can't get rid of it because it can only be passed on with the death of the current possessor. So every time he like tries to throw it away into a river, it just reappears in his pocket.
Mhm.
Right? The bad guys are after him, and of course the villainous right hand of the super bad is a former ally that has become one with the villains, right? There is, of course, a beautiful warrior woman, because of course there is, right? They every time they saw a trope and said, could we avoid it? They said, nah, let's face plant into it. And they even have, very similar to Red Sonja, oddly enough, a nod or two to the actual original material. So famously in Deathstalker, there's an orc in the original Deathstalker. Their orc is a dude in a pig mask covered in makeup, right? So when they have orcs in the new Deathstalker, it's a dude in a pig mask covered in makeup. Because they didn't reinvent the wheel. They said, what's good in the original, it'll be good here. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Like I
So-
said, the silliest part is that the Dreadites look like red flavored putties from Power Rangers.
So what you're saying here is the first movie says, listen, the Arnold movie is so iconic. The first movie reviewed. We have to be closer to the book and rely on our leading man to
Right.
carry the movie as much as he's able to. Whereas Deathstalker is, no, we're gonna do the exact same schlock.
Yeah. We're gonna do the exact same schlock that made us a cult hit the first time.
So refresh my memory, what passes for the plot of Deathstalker?
The original Deathstalker?
Yeah.
So, funny story. The other night, Ty and I were thinking about what to watch. I was like, I can't watch Deathstalker unless I have seen the original 3. We didn't get to the other 2. We watched the first Deathstalker. And I was like, this is going to be bad, Ty. I'm warning you ahead. We can stop this at any time. She's like, okay, let's do it. So we stayed up super late. We watched Deathstalker 1. It is fresh in my mind. So what is the plot of the original Deathstalker?
Mm-hmm.
Man who can't act come out of mist to stop badly made up mutants from raping woman, after woman who was captured by thief was going to be raped, so that Deathstalker can rape her. That is the start of Deathstalker 1. I mean, she was a little into it because he did save her life from mutants. Okay? But
I mean,
but then Deathstalker encounters random king living in hut, trying to avoid evil wizard soldiers, who says, we need a hero to go into evil wizard's fortress and kill evil wizard. And Deathstalker's like, no. And he only changes his mind because evil wizard is having a competition and inviting all of the most violent murder hobos in the land to prove who is best murder hobo in the land. Right? And so while he is there, he's like, I guess I'll kill wizard while I'm here. But it involves a lot of random shit. And when I say random shit, you mean, what do you mean, Joe? He goes to Bad Guy Fortress, right? And all of the murder hobos there are just having a big party. Okay, well, what does this party entail? Rape, because there are women of loose virtue there that are clearly not into how aggressively friendly the guys are being, but also music, and also food, and also punching in faces, and also dancing. All of this at the same time, all of this at random, all of this in plain view, right? On the way to the castle, they encounter a warrior woman who apparently fights without a top. All she wears is a loincloth and a cape. So of course, when she is at this party, she's wearing a top. But then later, when she is dramatically killed, and we all are supposed to feel bad about it, right? She is again topless, right? This actress being if I recall correctly, sort of, she's one of those adult or nude photo shoot actresses that was popular in the 80s. To the extent that Ty and I had an extended conversation about the fact that Deathstalker 1 has a sorrowful arrangement of tits. Except for this one noted actress, there are no nice tits in this movie. All of the tits are tiny, which is not intrinsically bad, but all the women who have them, they got no curves. There's no ass, there's no T, there's no nothing. It's just women with chests. It's very sad.
Yeah.
And then what else happens in Deathstalker? Trying to find the plot of Deathstalker. At one point, the villain turns one of his main guards into a woman so that she can seduce Deathstalker to stab him to death. And then Deathstalker defeats her in a wrestle and then proceeds to almost rape her until he discovers she might be a dude. Because this is the 80s. We are not very forward thinking at this time. And then the penultimate conflict is a dude that Deathstalker met who cannot wear a full shirt, and Deathstalker having a violent wrestle to the death covered in oil because two dudes wrestling each other is totally not gay. Because the villain is trying to get the villain's entire plan was to lure Deathstalker to this to kill him, right? At which point, of course, Deathstalker then goes on to defeat the wizard and save the day, which is some kind of plot that hinges on Deathstalker having the magic sword, the magic cup, and the magic amulet, which are never really explained, so that Deathstalker can destroy them despite the wizard saying you'll ruin everything. Right? Because we never find out anything about the villain's motivations, or indeed Deathstalker's motivations, or indeed anyone's motivations. Things just happen in this movie.
I mean, rape seemed to be a powerful motivation.
In the original Deathstalker, rape is, as described again by the guys on Red Letter Media, rape is an attack, rape is a pastime, rape is a sport. Right, like in this party, two women against their will are thrown into mud and then immediately begin to mud wrestle, right? So a third dude who decides he wants to get him some of that crawls into the mud with them to rape one of them. Right? This is the most unseemly film that has no penis in it. Because outside of tits and ass, like no one is ever nude in this movie. No actual sex happens except for one scene where maybe Deathstalker and notable warrior woman kind of flex at each other suggestively and make moaning noises, but like there is no sex in this movie. This movie is utterly sexless.
So, would they have been better if they were more like the original Arnold Schwarzenegger Total Recall when they readapted Deathstalker, made something that was loosely like Deathstalker? Obviously, with a lot less rape.
That's the thing. I think the new Deathstalker just kind of riffs on the greatest hits of the original Deathstalker trilogy, right? While having the wherewithal to be smart enough not to fall into some of its pitfalls, right? But then if you asked, would they have been better to have done a Total Recall with more of the identity of the Arnold Total Recall? Probably. Because my actual takeaway for The Running Man, as we come back around, is not that The Running Man sounds bad, although that ending leaves a lot to be fucking desired, right? But that the new Running Man had a impossible task, which was to bring the novel Running Man to a non-reading public who grew up with the Arnold Schwarzenegger Running Man.
Yeah, there wasn't any winning in that strategy. Absolutely, I agree.
Well, because there's another facet to this that again uses King. Everybody grew up with the Stanley Kubrick The Shining, right? Even if you don't think it's a... Oh, go ahead.
Which was a very good movie. It was excellent. Stephen King tried to reproduce it in a mini-series, which was
right.
not excellent.
Right. But here's the thing. Because he tried to reproduce it in a mini-series, right? You can place the two as separate. They're not direct competitors. There's Stanley Kubrick's vision, which was very good. And if you didn't care for it, or if you want to see something more like Stephen King's vision, here's a television version.
And then they made Dr. Sleep, which was at least linearly in the story a sequel.
It wanted to be a hybrid of several things. But what I'm getting at is that basically you can look at a TV production and say, well, that's TV. It doesn't have to follow the same, right? But you expect a film to carry on the traditions of film, right? So when you say this is going to be the Running Man, if you don't lean in and say this is Stephen King's Running Man, this is the book in a televised format, whereas the other was not, you're setting yourself up for failure. They instead of trying to do a more Stephen King accurate Running Man and then also trying to Hollywoodize it, they should have leaned into we're just doing the book. This is just a visual of the book and with a movie's budget. Please go read the book. Right? More clearly, don't say this isn't your grandpa's Running Man. Just say this is a different Running Man as loudly as you can. Because those comparisons are going to kill you. And they did. Running Man's dead on arrival.
I mean, it might make okay money, but it's not going to make great money.
It's not going to make Arnold money.
Yeah. So I'm going to pivot to one of the things we have in our show prep file because it's kind of related to this question of adaptions that we've been reviewing. I'm going to do here. We're going to do the share screen. Come on, you. All right. And we're going to go over here. Game of Thrones showrunner David Benioff said they almost had the Hound or Brienne of Tarth kill the Night King, but not Jon Snow. We didn't want it to be Jon. because he's always saving the day.
Except he's
What
not.
I've been told is that was not what happened to John ever in the show.
It's not.
That's what the tweets are all indicating there. And what was the point of Jon Snow's character if he wasn't there to be the new great man? Albeit, I know that's nothing George would have wanted. But if you're following what George's notes were left on and a few like Crayola sketches, and you have to add something, John's the new Ned Stark. He's the new great noble man to lead the world after a time of turmoil. Because
All
those
right.
sorts of people come up in a time of turmoil.
All right. Let's talk about Martin. And people know we've talked about Martin several times on this show,
Hmm.
usually in the negative. And I'm always struggling because I'm trying to say that he is an excellent artisan at his craft. That doesn't mean I like what he has to say. Okay. Very similar to my opinions on Tolkien. Tolkien was good at what he did. He's not the bee's knees. Right?
Hmm.
Let's talk about what Martin actually wanted to say. Not what he did say. Not
Well, I mean, we're talking about Benioff and Weiss. We are going to talk about something
no,
George
we
Martin
no,
said.
we got to talk about Martin because we have to justify where they diverged. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Martin wanted to do a fantasy story. Postmodern, modern doesn't matter. He wanted to do a
Mm.
fantasy story. Fantasy traditionally has done very poorly on television and in media until Peter Jackson did Lord of the Rings, because while Conan is a cult favorite, the fact of the matter is a lot of fantasy is trash. A lot of fantasy is seen as expensive and not doesn't get returns. When somebody says, but Star Wars is a science fiction. I know science fantasy is a thing now, but it's a science fiction. Fuck you. Okay. So he said, I'm going to do a fantasy, but I'm going to do a fantasy that is really, really grounded, not high fantasy, not a bunch of magic, right? And he, in fact, stealth wove in all the high magic and the high adventure stuff that you would expect. Okay? So in practice, Game of Thrones is a sidestep on production. Okay? Because we looked at
Hmm.
Hollywood and we said, we want to do a fantasy. And they said, what, you mean like a Lord of the Rings? And they said, sure.
Kinda.
Yeah. Right? And then when you get into the deep of it, it's like, no, it's actually a deep political narrative. And the thing is that whether you like Game of Thrones or not, that hit a taste the viewers weren't getting before. Right?
Hmm.
They went, holy shit, this is really good. I want more of this. Because even if you didn't like it as a book, at least as a television narrative, it's pretty solid for a while. Okay? Here's where they diverge. Martin wanted to lean in to its fantasy underpinnings, which means that Jon Snow, that whiny bitch, because at the beginning of the books and the show, he's the whiniest cunt, is actually the chosen one. Okay? He's supposed to save the day. He's supposed to defeat the Night King. He's supposed to accomplish all of these things. He is the great man. At the time when people need great men, in an age where we don't believe in heroes, he's the fucking hero. Holy shit. Right?
Hmm.
That's actually a good story.
Yes.
Okay? That actually works.
That actually, even if you're being cynical about history like George is, that gives you an idea to sort of say, and here's why the great man keeps showing up in history.
Right. Right. I have an incredibly cynical, incredibly venal story, and yet the classics still happen because they're classic.
Hmm?
Gold. Okay? Benioff and Weiss, not only because they wanted to fast track, they wanted to jump ship and go to Hollywood. How'd that work out for you guys? How'd it
Not
work
well.
out? But
I mean, they did
also,
make a ton of money, so.
because they quite frankly didn't believe in that thesis, right?
No.
We're like, Can't have Jon fucking Snow be the guy, right? And so we know why they chose who they chose, and we know that it was never going to be the Hound. It was never going to be Brienne of Tarth. Fuck you. Fuck your revisionism. Don't lie to me and stick your thumb on my ass and tell me that it's love. We know what that is. You
Also,
chose Arya
had John.
Stark because Arya Stark was a fan favorite. And you said, we'll have this one kill the Night King and everyone will love us again.
And that did not happen.
Did not work.
Had Jon Snow done the deed, led his army in there with Daenerys into the capital, a lot more of that ending would have made sense to George's long-term themes as well as the story itself.
Well, in the realm of hypothesizing, I put to you that you could have Jon Snow kill the Night King, and you could even have Arya Stark help him out, right? Like you have this epic fight with they're fighting the Night King on the parapet, and there's swinging and swords and sparks and fire and shit, and then Arya gets fucking ganked but not like killed. She just gets curb stomped, and Jon is fighting the Night King, and the Night King is gonna win, and Arya from the ground stabs the Night King in the fucking kneecap from behind, right? And the Night King is like, because it hurt and it was a distraction, and that's what Jon needs to take the Night King out. And everyone would have been like, yeah. But no, instead we got the last season, and we got a fight scene that nobody could see what the fuck's going on because actually filming it would have been too expensive.
Yeah.
And by the way, interesting comparisons. Deathstalker begins with a massive battle scene and a violent, gory set of actions. Okay? There's probably, let's be honest with ourselves, about a dozen guys on a set. Okay? And they're fighting the Dreadites. And the Dreadites are wrecking them, right? To the extent that the Dreadites all have swords with like sawtooth blades on the front, right? And you actually watch one of them kill a dude and then sawing the sword back and forth through his skull, because the sawtooth thing is not just for show, it's literal. Okay? And how is this presented? It's a black screen, and then they bring up the lights and you see the scene, and then it goes back to black, right? So that the scene itself can be on a black set. They don't have to do a bunch of background, right? And so they never really show you more than like maybe a dozen or 2 dozen total guys, right? To save money, right? To keep it thin. But when it does come into view, you can absolutely see everything that's happening. So when you see them graphically decapitate a guy from behind and rip his throat off, right? With a sword, with a blade, with an axe, what have you, right? You see it. You see it in graphic color because it is an 80s movie at heart, and it knows that this is what you came to see, right? When you watch the Game of Thrones Battle of Winterfell, you can't see shit. Everybody's carrying flaming sticks and pretending they're swords and waving them around at non-existent zombies, and they're playing noises over pitch fucking blackness. Because really, in the kabuki of Benioff and Wise's Game of Thrones, you'll just imagine a vast and sweeping battle. If I wanted to imagine a vast and sweeping battle, I'd read the fucking book. It's just...
So I wanted to bring up next the fact that we did allude to it. George R. R. Martin called out One More Day recently.
Yes.
As part of George's campaign to do things other than finish The Winds of Winter.
And people have pointed out that it's like, hey, here you are giving your opinions on this, but you ain't finished your shit. And somebody said the smart, which I agree with. Somebody said we ain't never going to get an end, not because he couldn't, but because Benioff and Weiss already salted the well. He doesn't want to write it because what they wrote was such trash. He doesn't want to be connected to it anymore.
Also, what other realistic possibilities were there from his last notes to an ending that aren't going to take it to the same place or through the same places? Anything he does to, in if he were to get to that point again, have Jon Snow fight the Winter King, it's going to be viewed as reactionary to what Benioff
Right.
likes to.
It's oddly enough exactly what we were talking about with Death Stalker and Running Man. It's like it's an untenable situation. What are you going to make that isn't going to be judged against Game of Thrones? What could you possibly do in a Running Man that's not going to be compared against Arnold? There's no win it.
None whatsoever.
But you know what? But you know what? I will give Martin this. Even Game of Thrones at its worst is not as hated as much as One More Day.
True, it's true. But he also talked about how you you don't retcon a marriage. You can kill people who are married, but you can't retcon the marriage itself because marriage is it's a dramatic building block in a way that life itself isn't a dramatic building block. It's an event that defines people. It's a crucible kind of event, and that is why we're not fans of it around these parts.
Here's
We're
the thing.
not.
I don't know if I disagree. I don't know if I agree rather with the basic supposition of uh you don't retcon a marriage. What I will say is we're actually going to use Marvel language for a minute. We're going to canonize a bullshit term because it's not a bullshit term in writing. It's a bullshit term in universe. Okay? You shouldn't retcon canon events. And somebody's like, what's a canon event?
Well, Marvel
Various,
doesn't really know.
right. But within the realm of writing, different actions in a plot are linchpins, right? Not every action has significance, but some are more significant than others in a more explicit sense, right? So we look at Spider Man, let's boil it down. What are the canon events of Spider Man? Well, obviously, there's the getting bit by the radioactive spider and the death of Uncle Ben, right? You can't retcon those. Those have to happen to have a Spider Man, right?
Hmm.
The death of Gwen Stacy, 100%, right?
You can maybe trade off the death of Uncle Ben if you sacrifice Aunt May.
Right.
Maybe.
But then what else, right? Well, we can guess some of the others. You might be able to skip Battle World, but you can't skip Venom, right? Not really. You have to have
Mm.
Venom at some point. And because you have to have Gwen Stacy, you have to have the Green Goblin,
Hmm.
right? In some fashion, right?
And I mean, Norman is, Peter's arch nemesis.
Right. But we can surmise that you have to have um maybe if not the Clone Saga, the Jackal and Kane, right? You might be able to swing a Ben Riley in some fashion because we saw several plots happen in the animated 90s show, right? That were classic storylines that got picked up but had to be recontextualized for audiences. So like they did the Clone Saga, but they didn't do the whole Clone Saga, right?
Hmm.
Um you could argue maybe Spider-Man meets the X-Men and they clarify that he's not a mutant is a major canonical event, right? Peter Parker marrying Mary Jane is a promise. It is the summation of 2 decades of storytelling promising that they might one day hook up, right? It is the validation of a dream that is held by every nerd and every man comic fan from the neighborhood that I'm going to get the good job and I'm going to get the girl,
Hmm.
right? We don't mind if it's hard. We don't mind if it's difficult. But we believe it can happen because if it doesn't happen, then it can't happen for anyone, right? ye old narrativium and Terry Pratchett, right? How can we
Mhm.
believe in lies like truth, justice, and fairness if we don't make them happen? Right? So when you destroy those, you invalidate those suppositions and you invalidate the character. That has been the problem of Spider-Man since I want to say the introduction of Miles Morales, right? Peter Parker is an invalid. He's a non-character. He is a property that exists to generate money. And until they in some fashion fix this shit, he will not get better and their sales will not improve.
But the problem is that his declines are smaller than the declines of everybody else in the company.
Right.
So they consider that a win.
Well, ish, because I saw another post recently on comics Twitter positing the fall of Daredevil. That Daredevil supposedly was this super elite, the best of comics in Marvel for decades, and then they put one Wokey in charge, and it's ruined. Um,
Well,
and
no, they're going to put her in charge.
the thing is that I was never a Daredevil fan. Didn't have a problem with Daredevil's existence. I'm just not a super fan, and so I am hard pressed to argue that Daredevil is somehow the best in Marvel comics. Maybe in sales in the sense that it regularly made money, but the fact of the matter is like no. When you think Marvel, you think Spider-Man. Nobody thinks Daredevil, right? Spider-Man is Marvel Comics personified. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, it's true.
And that's something Stan himself even recognized.
Right. And with that in mind, if you harm Spider-Man, you're harming the entire company.
Mhm.
That's the thing. The decrepitude and the decay of Spider-Man is reflected in the decay and decrepitude of the company.
But we can end a little early today since it's just the two of us. But I do want to bring up one
I mean,
other
we got
piece.
powerful show tonight. We got some pretty good stuff going down.
We did some good stuff. That is
It's like
true.
a
But I want to bring up another
okay.
topic I saw that was of interest because I did not ever know this deep lore that was brought up here. All right,
Okay.
so here we have the classic meme image of the Joker talking about how
Yep.
much he hates Nazis. But did you know that they stole this bit from the Rocketeer?
I didn't. Here's the thing. I remember watching The Rocketeer, but I remember not liking The Rocketeer because it just didn't grab me.
Mhm.
So I didn't get. I didn't. I don't remember that line from The Rocketeer, but it wouldn't surprise me either.
Yes,
Because
the gangster saying, "Hey, I'm a criminal, but I'm an American criminal," which fits the
the
ethos of the mafia back then.
well, the thing is that this is not the first time this joke has been made. Not just in The Rocketeer. Like this is not the first time the Joker has made this joke. Famously, there's the scene where he eyeballs the Red Skull and was like, "No, I'm a criminal, but I'm an American criminal. I didn't realize I was working with the Nazis." Right?
Ah, and
Uh,
the Nazis were being fronted by Timothy Dalton.
yeah. Um, the thing is that the reason I didn't go all in on the Rocketeer is that when we talk about pulp era films or pulp style films, my personal pantheon goes Indiana Jones, The Shadow, and The Phantom, right? I just not into the Rocketeer.
I mean, the Rocketeer was pulp cheese of the best kind.
My problem with the Rocketeer, because like if Razor Fist watched us, yeah, right. He's a huge fan and does not like how the Rocketeer has been treated in recent years. Um, the Rocketeer is from the 50s. He's a post-war serial character, right? so late 40s, early 50s. That's when the pulps were dying as written media, right? And the juice just isn't there. I don't get the same absolute fantastic hit as I would get from a Doc Savage, you know. But I recognize it's a different genre because it's a high flying adventurer. It'd be more like G8 and his battle aces than a Doc Savage, and that's okay. It's just not my deal. And I find it funny that we're now talking deep about how cool the Rocketeer is, because we don't want to talk about how stupid this line with the Joker is.
Because really, if John Byrne did lift it from the Rocketeer, it really just invalidates that whole argument. And of course, we have later versions of the Joker with a Nazi stripper. We have the Joker who worked for the government of Iran.
Right.
He's done heinous politics.
Look, everyone talks about this character needs to go on a shelf, that character needs to go on the shelf. I'm going to throw it out there. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Put the Joker on the shelf.
I mean, the Joker's like the Daleks from Doctor Who. You need to use it sparingly.
Right. They have been pushing the ultimate evil that is the Joker so hard for so long, it has become a parody of itself, that it's like, you know what? Just fucking kill him. Nobody cares anymore. It only matters insofar as we can't kill him. Kill him. Anyone. Children with flamethrowers, please light the Joker on fire. It'll be funny. He'll go with it. Let the Punisher shoot him. Let a mugger stab him. I don't care. Drop an anvil on his head. You're owned by Warner Brothers. You can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of him. Get rid
Do
of him in a way
everybody
that
a favor.
get rid of him in the way that the Batman will not then spend 6 months lamenting it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because the fact of the matter is that he no longer serves any positive narrative element. I believe I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago or on this show, but maybe in private. I came across a goof making fun of Salvation Run, right? Because in Salvation Run, the Joker tries to assert his control, and somebody says, you know, who the fuck would ever listen to you? And so the Joker beats him to death with a rock,
Mm-hmm.
right? And somebody wisely was pointing out, it's like, bro, you're made of fire, you're made of nuclear power, you are literally made of rocks. He's just a dude. He's just a dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like in Marvel when they did Welcome Back Frank and Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Wolverine join forces to take out the Punisher, and find that they get in their way more than they actually can fight the Punisher, because there's some weird narrativium effect that somehow makes it so that good guys can't fight the Punisher. The Joker's not a mystical villain. He doesn't have Dr. Fate's powers. For fuck's sake, Dr. Fate, please snap your fingers and remove the Joker from causality. I'm sure the Lords of Order owe you one. What the fuck? Because now we have to talk about a meme making the rounds that just encapsulates perfection as to why modern Batman doesn't work. Have you seen the image where it's absolute Batman talking to Spider-Man?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and Spider-Man says, "Well, what kind of villains do you fight?" And absolute Batman grim points, and Spider-Man looks up, and he's looking at the current Joker in absolute Batman, and that's supposed to be a take that, like, Batman has the worst villains. I hate to tell people, Scott Snyder just made fucking Venom. It's just
But with
Venom
extra steps.
with extra steps. Yeah, it's just Venom. He just threw Venom, people. It's not clever. It's not deep. It's not interesting. It's just Venom. It's like, oh, but if his head flies off, all of his fangs go all the way down. Yeah, I saw it. Okay, I saw it with Tim Curry. All right, I read the book. Okay, it was done a lot better the first time. I don't need him to reinvent it as an evil mafiosi with a Venom smile. It's not good. None of it's good. All right. Absolute Batman is an attempt to reinvent the wheel to sell more Bat books because they've started to have the unspeakable thing that Bat books are starting to dry up. And it could be perhaps because maybe just possibly you're making shit stories. Your Bat
Hmm.
stories suck. Nobody wants to be lectured, and nobody wants to watch the Bat Family. We want to see Batman fight criminals with, detective work fighting crime. We've been saying it for 30 years. How long do we have to tell you what we want before you just give us that thing? For fuck's sake. We don't want Alan Moore's reimaginings. Okay? We don't want Grant Morrison's fucking I did LSD, let me tell you a story. All right? We want a real and good Batman story. Oh, you mean a timely one? No, a good one. Not timely, not meaningful. I'm not requiring you to tell me about how put upon and awful the poor are. We don't want the Joker movie, as good as the Joker movie was. We want a good Batman story. Can you do that? It's not hard. It's never been hard. They just don't want to do it.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
As you
And
as you have put up before, because you asked the question, but Joe, how would that make us money?
exactly. Hold up. Hold up. Hey, John, you wanna if you're still there, you wanna talk about
Oh my
K-pop
god.
Demon Hunters? We can talk about K-pop Demon Hunters if you want to come on.
I mean, I am amused that John Dillard thinks K-pop Demon Hunters is the greatest film of all time. So yeah,
I mean,
let's hear
it's
about
it's
this.
it's pretty good.
Also, we are so bad at paying attention to our audience. No wonder they don't watch. Usually there's four of us and somebody's keeping an eye.
Yeah, I missed out on John making his comment.
We missed
But
out on John. Um, this is now a sad day.
yeah, so we can give him a minute or two to see
Give
if
him
he
a
wants
poke.
to. Yeah, and then
Yet
we'll talk.
Yet again, the white man has ignored the Latino man.
Mm, mm. Uh, there we go. While we're waiting to see if John wants to get on, I do want to end with another interesting bit of things. So, are you familiar with Chesterton's fence?
uh, no, not specifically.
It's
But
a
I
philosophical construct outlined by G.K. Chesterton, which states that you should not remove a fence if you're not sure why it was placed there in the first place.
which is logical.
And this is all about all the new sportsbook gambling, including
Right,
that there were professional baseball pitchers and batters who were screwing up bets in the thousands, not tens of thousands of dollars. And now we have the entire integrity of baseball as a sport eroded, and baseball players having to buy extra security.
right,
And this was the reason everybody said, you shouldn't, loosen the rules on sports betting because inevitably this is going to happen.
right.
So, what do you think about this whole sports betting situation, Joe?
For people who didn't see, because it scrolled up a bit. Somebody, I'm assuming they called up.
Hmm. They were actually
Uh,
in the group chat for the conspiracy to commit a crime.
yeah, and said, caused me to lose a lot of money, so you better look out, because if you don't turn it around, I'm gonna come find your family. Whereas like I don't involve myself in sports betting. I don't involve myself in sport. But quite frankly, no one should be surprised and everyone should have expected this to happen at some point.
Hmm.
Because we already had the mob, right? Now we have private citizens can do it.
Yep. Well, I'm thinking we end like about 15 minutes early. Did give John the opportunity to get back on, but he must have drifted off in the 40 odd minutes to deal with his
Right.
wife and child, probably.
Going off being an adult.
Well, I guess say
What?
is we're gonna say goodnight, everybody. Hopefully, Ayrton gets on next week. We can talk about some James Bond stuff. There's all
Yeah,
sorts of interesting James Bond stuff I want to get Ayrton's hot or even medium takes on.
but what if they do a well done take? We ask them to leave. Good
So, good night, everybody.
night, everybody.
Doot, doot.